Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Overwatch League fan thoughts and analysis. Today, we will be looking at the Washington Justice and taking a look at their 2020 roster. Now, interesting stuff with the Washington Justice. This team, of course, did not have a strong finish last season. They finished last season tied for 17th with an 8-20 record, minus 33 differential. However, the end of the season, they got stage 4, a 6-1 record. So it's a bit weird, because you see that, and it's weird that they had a really weak first three stages. They had 2 wins for the first 3 stages, and then 6 wins in stage 4. So a lot of questions surrounding this team, but they also made a ton of changes. In the offseason, they got rid of Sansan, Jonas, Hyonu, Otto, Guido, and Sleepy, retaining Corey, Stratus, Arc, and then, of course, Elivote and Lulsish, who never actually saw stage time. They didn't get signed by the team until July 14th, so they haven't actually played a match yet for the team, but they stay with the team, and then they made some other off-season signings as well. They had Roar, formerly from the Los Angeles Gladiators, a main tank, of course. They add Tuba, who is a DPS player, who played most recently in Contenders China for Bubble Burster Gaming, but he also played for O2 Blast last year as well, played for MVP Space last year, and also played for Seven back in 2018. So he played with a bunch of, I believe, Seven had a bunch of guys that went to the Hangzhou Spark, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Adora, Bazi, and Revenge all left and went to the Hangzhou Spark. Also, the head coach left. Roki left and went to O2, and then went to the Toronto Defiant. So he has had some experience playing with some really high caliber players. I don't know much about him. I don't expect him to be their starting DPS player. I think they're going to try to build around Corey and Stratus based on what we saw from them last season. But Tuba is another projectile DPS player, much like Stratus. So Corey's definitely safe. He's going to be playing every match because he is the hit scan guy. Stratus plays very similar hero pool to Tuba, so we'll see which one of them plays more often. I honestly would expect it to be Stratus right now, but we'll have to see what happens. But I think it's an interesting signing. I don't think it's a necessary signing, but I think it's an interesting signing. And then the last player they signed was Aim God, of course, the former flex support for the Boston Uprising. He is now with the Washington Justice. They also, of course, had some changes to their staff, their organization. So their new general manager is Ballin, who, of course, was, I believe, the social media manager for the LA Gladiators, but it may have been more than that. But she was very involved with like their social media side. She's now the general manager. She also was the general manager for Team USA at the World Cup. So she did a very good job there. It's not as hard, I think, to be the manager for the US team at the World Cup because you know pretty much what players you're going to bring in, and that's a benefit. But still give her a lot of credit for that because she put together a team that managed to win the whole thing. So that's really important. And their head coach is John Galt, who was not the head coach, he was a coach for the LA Gladiators last season. So 3 people from the Gladiators come over to the Justice with John Galt, Ballin, and Roar. So not that weird. This is a team that is basically going to have some elements of the Gladiators to them. This team is interesting, as I've said. I think their goal with this team is to build around Corey and Stratus. They want to play around Corey and Stratus. They want to find a meta and a style that allows them to have Corey and Stratus going off and doing their thing and having a really, really successful meta, I guess, just whatever it is. And they want to be able to have players who will support that. Now, Stratus, I haven't seen much of his Doomfist. Obviously, it's listed as one of his signature heroes, so I assume he's got a pretty good Doomfist. It's something. Tuba is also listed as one of his, so one of them will be your Doomfist player. Corey, we know, can play Reaper. If you watched the World Cup, you saw Corey on Reaper. He was pretty insane on the Reaper, which is my worries with Corey would be how would he fare if he wasn't playing the Widow or the Hanzo or, one of his strong heroes. But we saw him on Reaper during the World Cup, and he played very, very well. He was arguably the MVP. Even people who weren't the MVP, were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Sinatra even said he should have been the MVP. He played a lot better than I did. So this is an instance of a very good player who is shown that he is able to play what he will most likely have to play going forward. So he has that going for him. He's in a very good spot in that sense, that he has played a lot of the very, very good teams, or he's played all the heroes he needs to play, basically. So, what do I think about the rest of this team? The support line, I think, is pretty good. I think Ark is a good player, especially if you're going to try to have a mixed roster. He obviously speaks English, he speaks Korean. He's a very good person to bridge teams in the same way that Bishu is a good way to bridge teams, because Bishu is a player who can speak both Korean and English. It helps you to communicate when you have one player who can just translate, if that person's your shot caller. Ark, I don't know if he's a shot caller or not. I don't think he's a shot caller. I don't know who the shot caller is on this team. Maybe it's Ark. I don't know. Ark would definitely be a good shot caller because he can make the quick, he can say something to Corey and Stratus and Elevo and Lolsish in English and say, we got to do this, we got to do this. Maybe, get that communicated. And then maybe he says something to Aim God in Korean just really quickly just to try to make sure that they're on the same page. And it could be the same thing that he's saying, just in different languages. Now, Aim God has also been on the Boston Uprising for the past 2 seasons, so I'm pretty sure he actually has spent a lot of time in the U.S. anyway. I mean, he has like a Western name, so that to me would make sense. I don't know if that's necessarily the true situation. People call him Jeff, so I mean, I don't know if he is actually someone who has spent a lot of time in the West, or he just has an affinity for the name Jeff. I don't know. But I think this support line is very good, and Aim God is a good player. He was a very good support last season. What's interesting to me is there's still Neko isn't on the team right now, to our knowledge, and Neko's a very good player. Obviously, Neko got traded in favor of Aim God by the Boston Uprising, but I still think Neko's a really good flex support, and I'm curious to see if he ends up on the team, because I thought he was a very good player, and I liked his playstyle. And I think he's definitely deserving to be on an Overwatch League team. He's one of those players that isn't on a team right now that people just aren't talking about. And it's interesting to me that he's just not getting any recognition, when I thought he was a player who did pretty well. But that's getting on a tangent. That doesn't need to be had, because he's not on a team right now. The big question, of course, for this team is the tank line. We haven't seen Lulsish or Elivote in the Overwatch League yet. Now, I've seen some people, I won't name any names, but I've seen some people saying that Lulsish and Elivote are too big of a risk, okay? You have these 2 players from Contenders that played in Contenders NA. They're too big of a risk to have on this team because you don't know how good they're going to be. My response to that is, every player who joined the Overwatch League in the first season of it was also an unproven player in the Overwatch League. that's just kind of how they function. So I don't really think that says everything that needs to be said about these players, right? They're very good players. We have seen how good they are. They have looked good in contenders, and I think that shows that this team is strong, or these two players are strong, and they have a lot of synergy with each other. They've played together for a long time. They've known each other for a long time, from everything that I've seen. So that to me isn't really a risk. But what I think is interesting is they opted to only sign one other tank player, which is Roar. So Elevote is going to be playing a lot. Now, Elevote, to my knowledge, is a very, very strong flex tank player. From everything I've seen, he's very, very good. He's one of the best Western flex tank players coming out of contenders. I say coming out of contenders, but technically he was on an Overwatch League roster. Lulsish is the one that I think is a little more iffy. I don't know how good he is, and we'll see. But I don't think you can break up the Lulsish Elevote tank synergy with Roar. I think if you're going to put Roar in, you needed to have another flex tank player. And there's a lot of good flex tank players that were out there, and they didn't sign any of them. Daco is still out there. I don't think they're going to sign Daco. I don't think he fits into this team. I don't think you signed AimGod and Daco. I think that's just not the wisest decision. But there were definitely other flex tanks out there, and you could have just kept Sansam. Sansam looked pretty good throughout the season. I think keeping Sansam would have been fine. Jonas was the problem with the tank line. Sansam was not the issue. You could have just kept Sansam. You could always bring him back, obviously, but I don't think that they will do that. But Sansam was a good player. I think he deserves to come back on an Overwatch League roster. And I think he'd be fine still in the Washington Justice. But I think Lulsish and Elevote are a tank duo in themselves. You can't really separate them, I think. I think that's what they bring you is two players who are very good together, but not as good not together. I think they should have signed another flex tank. If you're going to sign another main tank, I think you need to sign another flex tank as well. Which that's not. I don't want to try to make it sound like a bash on Elevote. I think Elevote's very good. I think breaking up the tank synergy might not work as well as possible, but who knows? Elevote's a really good player, and he'll probably be just fine, even if Lulsish isn't playing. But I think this is a very interesting roster here. And it's more interesting when you realize that their division is going to be pretty tough. And I talked about this a little bit with the Florida Mayhem. But this division, I don't think the Washington Justice are in a position to win this division. Now, I'm also reading now, I don't know if divisions actually matter at all. Because I don't think winning your division gets you into playoffs. I think just being the best team in your conference gets you in the playoffs. Something I was just reading. I don't know if that's true or not. I have to wait until the season gets closer and things get more clarified. But when you have a team like the Florida Mayhem, who I think look stronger, based on what they did in the offseason, though only slightly. You have a team in the Houston Outlaws, who I think look much stronger. The Atlanta Reign made some really nice moves to improve their roster. That was already the best roster from that division last season. Philadelphia Fusion made a lot of really nice moves, a lot of really strong moves to make their team stronger. And then you look at the Washington Justice, who I don't think made enough moves to really make their team a lot stronger. I don't think they look like a team who's going to really compete for that division. This is a team that I don't really see making playoffs, just because we haven't seen enough out of what we've gotten out of them. Corey and Stratus are very good players, and if you can play around Corey and Stratus and have a meta that Corey and Stratus are thriving in, you can do really, really well. But I think that this team is going to have some difficulties going forward. I don't think they're a super strong team. I don't think they're a super weak team. I just don't think they're a super strong team. they might be better than what they were last season. I wouldn't be surprised if they were better than what they were last season. But I'm still somewhat suspicious of this team and what we've seen from them. And for that reason, I am a little bit um, intrigued to see how this team performs going forward when I feel like they are a little bit more questionable. So we'll see what happens. I think this team could do very, very well. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I'm excited to see what this team does because I do think this is a strong team who has a lot of pieces that are solid, but I don't know how well those pieces are going to work together. I just don't look at this team and see that meshing as well as they could, or I just don't see them being the force that we saw them as in the fourth stage. But if Corey and Stratus can keep carrying like they did, they won't have any problems. That's my thoughts on the Washington Justice. If you have your own thoughts on them, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. That is everything I have for you. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. But for now, I'm going to get out of here. So thank you once again, and bye-bye.